Hello viewers, welcome to this video. So in this video we will be looking at how to deploy Gitea in your Kubernetes cluster. So a while ago I did this video about Gitea, which is a self-hosted Git solution, and if I go to YouTube and search for Gitea, just me, Gitea. Yep, that video, Gitea, Git with a cup of tea, installation and configuration. That's the video that I did about a week ago. So one of the viewers asked me whether we could deploy this in a Kubernetes cluster. Okay, let's actually go and find who that guy is. Okay, so it is John. Hi John, could you make a video deploying Gitea on Kubernetes? Okay, so this video is for you. I hope you will find this useful. So there we go. We are going to deploy Gitea in Kubernetes. If you haven't watched this video, Gitea installation and configuration, that's basically how to run Gitea using Docker container. Gitea is a self-hosted Git solution, and now let's see how to deploy it in a Kubernetes cluster. So I've got my Kubernetes cluster, kubectl version. I'm running version 1.17. kubectl get nodes, one master node, two worker nodes. All of them are Linux containers, LXC. They're not VirtualBox, virtual machines or anything. They are simple Linux containers. If I do LXC list, you've got kmaster, kworker1, kworker2, and with the overlay network as flannel. Okay, so that's my setup for this video. Let's go ahead and deploy Gitea. All right. So in order to deploy Gitea, I need to write a manifest. So in order to write a manifest from scratch, actually what I can do is I can create a simple deployment and then copy the YAML file and then change it accordingly. So what I mean is kubectl create deploy nginx -- image nginx. I'm not going to deploy nginx, I'm just doing a dry run -o YAML. Okay, and I'm going to redirect that to gitea.yaml. That's done. So if I do kubectl get all, it hasn't deployed anything. We just did a dry run to grab the YAML file. So now we have a manifest file to start with. And if I do gitea.yaml, so that's a very simple manifest which we need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change all nginx to Gitea. So the label app nginx, I'm going to change that to Gitea. If you don't want labels, you need to have at least one label, because when you are exposing this deployment as a service, the service will find all these parts based on the label. So app is Gitea. Name of the deployment is, again, let's do it Gitea. We can have one replica, and we don't need the strategy, we don't need creation timestamp, we don't need resources status. Okay, so again here app Gitea, and here app is Gitea. The image we are going to use is Gitea/Gitea:\latest, and let's sort the indentation, and the name of the container is going to be Gitea. Okay, so that's it. And I also don't want this creation timestamp. So we have our simple manifest ready for deploying Gitea in our Kubernetes cluster. So save that file and do kubectl create -f gitea.yaml. Cool. kubectl get all. Okay, so Gitea container is getting created. kubectl get all. Okay, so our Gitea container is running. How do we access it? We need to expose the deployment as a service. So let's do that. So I'm going to be exposing this service as a node port service, but if you've got load balancer like MetalLB deployed, feel free to use load balancer service. But for me, it's easy to show you with a node port service. Okay, so let's expose this deployment. kubectl expose deploy Gitea -- port. If you followed my previous video about Gitea, you would have known that Gitea runs and listens on port 3000. So we are going to expose that port. Type is node port. Okay, kubectl get all. So now we have this Gitea service as a node port, and it's running on port 30449. So now I can access this port from any of my worker node, even though kubectl get pods -o wide. As you can see here, my pod, the only pod for Gitea, is running on kworker1, but still I should be able to access it from kworker2 on node port. This is all done by the overlay network. So even if I access kworker2, it's going to route the traffic to kworker1. Let's see. Okay, so the port is 304449, and I want to access the IP address of one of my worker nodes. Kubectl get nodes -o wide. So we've got kworker1, kworker2. I can access any of these nodes through this IP address. For ease of access, I've also added the entries in my etc host file, cat etc host, and you can see here I can access the machine using the name kworker1 and kworker2. I don't have to remember my IP address. Okay, so the node port for Gitea service is 30449. Let's go to the browser. kworker2:30449. So I'm accessing the worker node kworker2 where the Gitea pod is not actually running. It's actually running on kworker1. But this is all the magic of Kubernetes with overlay network 30449. Cool, that's it. So that's your Gitea dashboard. So it's simple now. It's going to greet you with an installation wizard, and if you click on any link, register for example, it's going to take you to the installation wizard. Because we are running this Gitea for the first time, we are going to go through some initial configuration and then we should be good to go. Okay, so that's our initial configuration. If you've got MySQL or Postgres running externally or within your Kubernetes cluster, you can use MySQL or Postgres, but SQLite is going to be very easy. You don't need any extra containers. The SQLite database will be inside the container itself. Okay, site title, if you want to change the site title, I'm not going to change anything. SSH, it's not going to work unless you make additional configurations, but for this video let's focus on HTTPS. Okay, so we know that Gitea is listening on port 3000. So when it comes to git clone, git push or anything, if we do HTTP localhost, it's not going to work. Excuse me. So you need to change the git base URL to this URL. kworker2:30449, this URL. Copy that and paste it here. Yep, HTTP kworker2 or kworker1, or if you've got load balancer, your load balancer IP:30449. Sorry, that's a node port. Okay, so anyway, and install Gitea. Okay, cool. We don't know the username and password. We haven't created any user account. So we need to register for our first user account. Venkat, email address venkat@justme.com. Password, by the way, that's a dummy email address. Register account. Okay, cool. So that's our dashboard. We don't have any repository. Let's create our first Git repository. Give it a name, repository test, visibility, okay, description, test repository, initialize the repository, create repository. So we have our repository here with a single file readme, and now I can copy the repository URL. Back in my terminal, I can do git clone, paste that, cd to test, and I'm going to add a new file, touch hello, git add, git commit -m, new file, git push, username is Venkat, and the password. Cool, that's done. Git log, head and master new file commit. That's all looking good. And back here, if I refresh, there we go. So we got 2 commits, and that's the file I just added. So that's how it works. So we've got Gitea deployed in Kubernetes cluster. We can git clone, git push, and whatever we want. It's all working fine, but there is one problem. There is no persistence. If we kill this pod and restart the pod, let's see what happens. Okay, kubectl get all. So we have this pod running. I'm going to delete this pod and let Kubernetes create a new pod. Kubectl delete pod Gitea. Okay, that pod is getting terminated. Let's wait for it to complete. Okay, kubectl get all. That's a new pod. You can see it just started about 12 seconds ago. The new pod is running, and now if I refresh this page, there we go. It's now welcoming again with an initial installation wizard, which means it hasn't got any data. So it thinks the Gitea is being run for the first time, so it's greeting us with a installation wizard, which means we lost all our data. That's it. So in order to fix this, we need to have some persistence enabled. Okay, let's close that back here, and I'm going to delete the repository that I cloned. vi gitea.yaml. So we have this Gitea file without any volume provisioning. Okay, so kubectl get storage class. So I've got a default storage class. So I've already enabled dynamic volume provisioning in my Kubernetes cluster. If you haven't done that, please follow my dynamic NFS volume provisioning video in this Learn Kubernetes playlist. So I have my dynamic volume provisioning setup. So if I create a persistent volume claim, it's going to create me a persistent volume. So I'm going to create a persistent volume for this Gitea pod, and then even if you delete and recreate the pod, it's going to use the persistent volume. So there is some volume that's persisted, so the data is actually persisted. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. vi gitea.yaml. So we are going to create a persistent volume claim. So go to the end of the file and 3 dashes, and we're going to create another resource, which is a persistent volume claim. Okay, so I'm gonna refer to the Kubernetes documentation for that. Kubernetes PVC pod. Okay, configure a pod to use a persistent volume. Create a persistent volume claim. Okay, that's there. I'm gonna copy that, paste it here. I'm gonna change some values. Basically metadata, name of this persistent volume claim. I'm going to change that to Gitea-pvc. Storage class name, I'm not going to give any storage class name. I'm going to delete that because I've got a default storage class. If I don't specify any storage class name, it's going to go with the default storage class that I've got in my Kubernetes cluster. Access mode, read write once. Resource request, so I would like to have a storage of say 1 gig. Okay, so we have persistent volume claim, and when we deploy this, it's going to automatically provision a persistent volume for me. But what's the link? How do we mount that inside this Gitea pod? So for that, under the pod spec, not under the deployment spec. So this is the deployment specification. So this is the pod specification. So go to the pod specification, and in the next line, what we are going to do is, if you scroll further down, so that's the volumes section. So we're going to create volumes and give it a name, persistent volume claim. Let's copy that. Persistent volume claim name. Okay, let's do that. Okay, name, come on, name is, give it any name. Let's call it Gitea volume, and persistent volume claim, it's of type persistent volume claim. and the claim name is this one. Okay, Gitea PVC. So we will specify the volume, but we need to mount the volume inside the container. So go to the container section here, volume mounts, and then mount path. So we are going to mount this inside the container under /data. Okay, and name, I think, yep, name is going to be, you need to give the name that we created for the volume, which is Gitea-volume. Okay, so that's all it is. So what we've done is we've created a persistent volume claim with 1 gig. We haven't specified any storage class, so it's going to use the default storage class. And under the deployment specification and under the part specification, we have defined a volume. That volume is basically a persistent volume claim, and the name of the persistent volume claim, which is Gitea-PVC, which is what we've given here. And in the container specification, we are defining where to mount and which volume to mount. We want to mount the Gitea volume, which we defined here, and we want to mount it under /data. Okay, so that's all it is. Save it, and kubectl get all. Let's first delete all the things that we have got here. Kubectl delete deploy Gitea, kubectl get all. Okay, that container is getting terminated. We don't have to delete and recreate the service. The service is fine, so let's leave the service running. Kubectl get all. Okay, so that's gone. So now I can do kubectl create -f gitea.yaml. Gitea.yaml persistent volume claims Gitea-PVC already exists. Okay, let's start from scratch. Kubectl delete PVC Gitea-PVC, and then let's also delete kubectl delete deploy Gitea. Okay, let's wait for it to complete. Okay, I think it's start kubectl get PVC. Okay, that's getting terminated. Okay, so let's change it. Vi gitea.yaml. Let's change the persistent volume claim to Gitea PVC-1. And also change it here, claim name Gitea PVC-1, because I can't create it because there's a persistent volume claim already with that name, and when I'm trying to delete that, I think it's stuck in the terminate state. So let's change the persistent volume claim and then update it here. So now kubectl get all, kubectl delete deploy Gitea. Let's start again from scratch. Kubectl get all. That part is getting terminated. Is it gone? Nope. Yep, that's gone. Kubectl create -f gitea.yaml. Cool. So now we have the deployment created, we have the persistent volume created, kubectl get all. That's running fine. And the service node port 30449 k worker 2:30449. Cool. So that's our Gitea. Let's go ahead and finish the installation wizard. Okay, so everything is going to be the same except the git base URL, which will be this one. Copy and paste it. Install Gitea, and we're gonna register a new user, Venkat at justme.com. Password. Okay, register account. Cool. Let's create a repository. Test repository. Test repo. Initialize the repository. Create repository. Okay, so we now have the repository. Copy the URL. Git clone cd to test, and let's touch a new file. Touch hello git add git message, new file, git push. Sorry, that's not the right username. Venkat. Okay, that's done. And if I refresh the page now, I can see the new file here. Okay, so now comes the real testing. So kubectl get all, kubectl delete pod Gitea. I'm going to delete the pod and let Kubernetes create the new pod, and we should be able to see the data. We shouldn't be losing the data because we've persisted the data in a persistent volume. Kubectl get all. Okay, so that's running for 14 seconds. So that's definitely a new pod, not the old pod. And now if I click refresh, cool, we still have access to the data like it with just one repository. Hello, and everything is working fine. And if I do rm-rf test git clone, everything is working fine. So that's how you use the persistent volume with Gitea. Okay, hopefully you might find this video useful. Please share it with your friends and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That's all I wanted to show you in this video. If you've got any questions or any comments, please let me know. I'll be happy to help you. I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye.